This week on Capitol Report, Republicans make Matt Corey their candidate for U.S. Senator. But is he ready to take on Chris Murphy?
He's bringing nothing forward that is going to bring Connecticut forward or the country forward.
I don't believe a word of it.
You don't believe me?
No.
No?
Did I stutter?
Plus, a look at how early voting went here in Connecticut.
Connecticut has successfully navigated another early voting period.
Yes, what you see.
Iceberg, right ahead!
Shock and awe over another rate hike approval for Connecticut's utility companies.
We're here today to say enough is enough. Our ratepayers are paying too much.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
And is the keg kicked when it comes to Connecticut's craft breweries?
Well, beer, we've had some great times.
Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dudchik, and we are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the panel. Look who's here with us, the new Executive Director of the Social Equity Council, the weed czar of Connecticut, Brandon McGee.
Hey, man.
Good,
Glad
man.
to be
Good
back
to be with you. Still have some time at Labor, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
The former Speaker of the House who probably passed that bill that basically got him going.
No, I couldn't get it over the finish line. Jason Rojas took care of it.
Okay, all right. Good. Liz Grant, a Republican strategist, wallowing in 50.
Excited you're turning over a new leaf.
Geez.
We're getting
And Johnny McKinney, like J.D. Vance, a great student at Yale University. Right?
The best.
All right, guys, let's get into it. Matt Corey is back, baby. Corey is once again Republican Party's candidate for U.S. Senate here in Connecticut. Corey won last Tuesday's primary and will now go head-to-head with Democratic incumbent Chris Murphy, the Murph in November. Now comes the hard part. Corey has been in this position before. You may recall he lost to Murphy in 2018, and once again, he doesn't have a fraction of the campaign haul that Murphy is letting, of course, a well-liked senator in a deep blue state. But that will not deter Corey, who spoke to News 8's Mike Cerulli about what he thinks matters to all Connecticut voters, not just Republicans. Watch this.
This is about affordability. Connecticut cannot afford another 6 years of Senator Murphy. Senator Murphy's for a $5 to $7 trillion tax increase. He's for taxing energy. We need a senator down there that's going to make life a lot easier. Energy independence. We need to put kitchen table issues back to where they're supposed to be. Affordability, jobs, small businesses, large corporations that are leaving Connecticut. We need to make it, whether you're in suburbs or urban area, we need to make this affordable state and affordable country to live in.
For his part, Senator Chris Murphy was in Kenya for much of the week. His campaign manager, Max Glass, said Murphy is looking forward to, quote, working really hard over the next 12 weeks to elect Kamala Harris and Democrats up and down the ballot and win re-election while keeping up his work in the Senate to deliver for the people of Connecticut. Guys, so my Republican pals, huh?
Look, Matt's not wrong at all about the issues. When you talk to neighbors, you talk to friends, you're out in the community, no matter what, you're knocking doors. This is what people care about. People are really upset about the costs of inflation and what that's doing to their household budgets. They're maxing out their credit cards. They're not saving for the future. Those are the issues that matter. The issue is going to be, how do you put those on the forefront of voters' minds? How do you go turn those voters out? And how are you able to get your message out? And that's where, unfortunately, Matt is going to have a huge issue just because he does not have the resources with which to go and execute that campaign and deliver that message to voters that he's going to do something different than Chris Murphy.
Brandon, who will be wallowing in the Democrats in Chicago this week, huh?
Yeah. You know, first of all, I think Chris needs to update that headshot. But nonetheless, I do believe that he's saying all the right things, which to me says, what differs you? What's different in your messaging and your campaign, sir, that will be different from Chris Murphy, what he's already doing? And I think when you have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, there's an opportunity to really do some big things. I'm not sure if there is anything different in his messaging that will cause folks to really want to stand behind him.
Well, look, I think Matt Corey's the better messenger than Jerry Smith. I think the Republican voters who came out, although the turnout was pathetically low, made the better choice, having run for a statewide Republican primary. I never heard from Jerry Smith. I don't even know who he was or what he was doing or what he stood for.
You don't know where Beacon Falls is.
It was one of the most non-campaign candidate campaigns I've ever seen in my life. Matt Corey is a fighter. He is well-spoken. He's going to take on, you know, Goliath of Chris Murphy. The best thing I heard there was that Chris Murphy says he's going to be working to elect Democrats across the country. That's good. Go focus on winning other Senate seats across the country. Maybe Republicans can make some inroads here in Connecticut.
I think Matt Corey's problem is the credibility. You know, having the credibility, the message can be right, but you got to trust the person that you're sending to whatever elected office. You have to believe that they're going to do what they say, and I think his message gets muddled when all of his lawn signs that I saw during the primary was, "I'm Trump's guy." Right? Donald Trump has no credibility, in my opinion. For me and many of the voters across this country, he just babbles on incessantly about issues that nobody's talking about. So Matt, to make the pivot of, "I'm Trump's guy, but I really want to get things done on this issue," I think the immigration bill showed us that Trump isn't serious about solving issues, and thereby does Matt Corey get muddled in with him. I think he does.
There's more to come on this one for sure. Hey, there were a few other interesting storylines on primary day. Democratic State Rep Elsa Figueroa lost to Jonathan Jacobson after complaints surfaced about anti-Semitic comments she made in a video where she reportedly said in Spanish, "We cannot permit a person who is of Jewish origin to represent our community." Jacobson, of course, won handily. Another race of interest, a four-way Democratic primary in Bridgeport. So, guys, let's first hit this Stamford race, guys.
That was the quickest karma turnaround that I've ever seen in my life.
Ever.
She said it and she lost, and I think that's the appropriate action. I think the voters of Stamford stood up and said, "This is not who we want as our elected official." Now the House Democrats really have to deal with what they have is now a caucus issue.
Mayor Carolyn Simmons called her to step down, John McKinney.
She did, and she's right. First of all, Mayor Simmons has been true all through this process. First to condemn her, she actually probably played a role in the primary against her. These comments were disgusting, and it wasn't just a one-off. There are multiple instances of that. And you know what really frightens me is we've talked about this since the horrific, brutal attacks on Israel on October 7th. Anti-Semitism is raging in this country. We've seen it on college campuses, and sadly, we've seen it in the People's House, the United States Congress, with Democratic congresswomen like Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the like, and their enablers who won't condemn them, who are openly anti-Israel, openly anti-Jewish. And now we've seen here in Connecticut. And Joe, I think the Speaker has a very difficult choice. I know he's condemned her. I know there's no session of the legislature between now and when the new legislature is
You never know.
But they should have a special session and consider two motions. One, a motion to censure, or two, a motion for expulsion. They need it on the record. We've done it before. It needs to be on the permanent record of the Connecticut House of Representatives.
Quick thought.
Yeah, I'm the optimist here, and I agree with you. I don't think now is the time for us to be so divisive, and we really need to come together. We argue a lot, Republican, Democrats, but not in this instance. It's just not the right thing to do. So kudos to Stamford.
All right, guys. Hey, so in another race of interest, a four-way Democratic primary in Bridgeport for retiring state senator Marilyn Moore's seat, the winner, Sujata Wilcox, the Trumbull Democrat, taking down former Bridgeport Mayor Bill Finch, Tyler Mack, and Scott Burns, guys. Now, I think this is an interesting race because is this a change, Liz Kranowitz, in the structure of Bridgeport away from Mario Testa in Bridgeport to the power base now in Ashley Gaudiano and Trumbull, in the Trumbull women?
We certainly see what happens when Democrats in Bridgeport have a microscope on them because despite almost $500,000 being spent among these 5 candidates in Bridgeport and some in Trumbull, Bridgeport's turnout in this Senate seat was only 11%. So when you can't cheat, you don't turn out, is really how it looks.
It was the 4th time they asked them to vote. They're a little voter fatigue right now, right?
So I think when you talk about what are the implications, maybe we are seeing a difference in the way that things are being done because maybe Joe Ganim didn't get involved, maybe Mario Testa didn't get involved, and that's what we're seeing. So we'll have to see how that turns out in November. But, you know, it is certainly an issue. And the last time this sort of happened was when we elected Rob Russo in that Senate seat. I think that was in 2011.
2008.
So, guys, power shift away from Bridgeport? Power shift?
I think it's a simple mathematical equation. You had 3 candidates splitting up the vote. You had the Trumbull candidate come in, and they won. But does that last? Is it a one-term senator, or does Bridgeport ever really get their house together? I'm glad the microscope's on them. Things do need to change.
It was good strategy by the Trumbull Democrats. Credit to them. But at the end of the day, if Mario and Joe Ganim had their candidate, that's the candidate who would have won. And maybe we'll see that 2 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hey, so Secretary of State Stephanie Thomas says it was, get this, smooth sailing at the polls on primary day. Early voting went off without a hitch. McKinney's just raising his hand. However, she thinks 7 days of early voting might be a little too many, and maybe something for the legislature to consider down the road. So more than 8,800 people voted early. As of August 12th, there were nearly 4,100 returned absentee ballots. A pretty small number, seeing that Connecticut has more than 2.2 million registered voters. Watch this.
We did anticipate low turnout in this primary, but it did give our election workers another opportunity to test the system and ensure that we are as well prepared as we can be for early voting in November.
Well, where to go with this one, guys? I think maybe too much early voting, Brandon. What do you think?
No, I am a fan of early voting. I do think we need to iron out the kinks in the system. We need to get some more awareness so that voters are aware that you can vote early. But there is no doubt we need to really take a hard look at what's happening in the system there. But kudos to Secretary Thomas, at least committing to this idea of early voting.
I showed up on election day, not early voting, 7:30. I was the second person to vote in the polling place, and the optical scan machine was broken and not working.
They're old.
Well, we're still waiting for
where's
federal
the
dollars.
No, the bonding money was approved. Where are the new voting machines?
I think we're looking for the federal match. And we're waiting on the federal match. And look, no excuses. Absentee voting will be on the ballot. I think that alleviates a lot of it with how the people are voting and what the time frame is. I think we need to roll that into place, if approved by the voters, which I think it will be.
Yeah, I still think it's wrong. Look, early voting does work. Early in-person voting is good. We don't need unexcused absentee ballot, which I supported before we had early voting. When we have early voting, you can't tell me that someone has a week or 10 days to show up for 10 minutes to vote, that they can't find a way there. They can do it.
All right, guys, up next on Cap Report, the effort to help disconnected and at-risk youth in Connecticut. When we come back, we'll discuss the 11-9K Commission with our pal, CCM Chief Joe DeLong. Go Mountaineers, the pride of West Virginia. Coming right at you.
You have to give people a chance, you know, and I wanted them to know that with chances and these resources and actually getting to these kids now, you can stop this problem.
The man you just heard from is Josh Brown. Brown spent 14 years of his youth homeless. Now he's one of 3 co-chairs of the 11-9K Commission, which was created with the goal of reaching the 119,000 at-risk and disconnected youth in Connecticut. When 11-19K is bringing together city and town leaders to try and deal with this unspoken crisis. Joining me today, Joe DeLong, Executive Director and CEO of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. Joe, thanks for being here.
Tom, thanks for having me.
So, Joe, what is the 11-9K Commission? Why was it created, and what has it been up to so far?
Well, Tom, as you know, last October of 23, Dalio Education released this report on Connecticut's unspoken crisis, that being 119,000 young people between the ages of 14 and 26 who are either A, at risk of not graduating high school. We know our graduation rates are declining for the first time in decades, or are completely, either partially or completely disconnected from participating in society. And so what CCM did is we came together and we started holding community forums last fall to really hear from the public about the report. And out of those community forums and out of those meetings with stakeholders was a very clear desire by both the communities we represent as well as our member mayors, municipal CEOs from across the state who said we need to step in and do something and put a strategy forward to address this crisis. And that's how the 119K Commission was formed.
So, Joe, one of the criticisms of commissions and task force in general is that the work they do is very insulated. How has the 11-9K Commission's process been different, and how have you engaged the stakeholders here?
Well, again, we've been at this for almost a year now. And before, I have to go back, before the 119K Commission was even formed, we were engaging people all over the state in community forums and community conversations to really learn about what needs to be done and how the community wanted to be engaged. The 119K Commission is actually a result of community engagement and stakeholder engagement, encouraging our municipal officials to step into this space. So the commission is a commission of 15. 12 of those 15 are municipal CEOs. Very bipartisan, come from communities, from the urban communities all the way down to our smallest rural towns. And what the commission has done is it's created several strategy inputs to this process that all are community engagement. We're doing regional forums where we're having panelists come in and speak, invited panelists, but then we're also opening up those forums where we're hearing from the community itself and what they feel needs to be done. We have a website, the 119kcommission.org, that has been taking in a whole lot of direct testimony. All of the 119K Commission meetings have been streamed live on Facebook, and we're meeting with stakeholders on a regular basis from all across the state. So this is a very community-directed, community-engaged process where our municipal officials are doing what they do best, which is actually going out and reaching out to their constituencies and saying, how do we do this together?
All right, Joe, 30 seconds left. I saw a little rollout last week. What comes next? What's the big report?
Well, the next thing for me is to call my mom and tell her I was on Capitol Report. But beyond that, what comes next for the commission, I think we're looking at sometime in early October. We will release a series of strategies to address this population. And that won't be a report to the legislature. It'll be a report to the people of Connecticut, because it's going to take so many people to be involved in resolving this crisis.
Joe DeLong from CCM, our friend, the pride of West Virginia. Go Mountaineers, Joe. See you soon.
Thank you.
Good work, Joe. Up next on Cap Report, power struggle. Pura approves more rate hikes by utilities. Republicans call for a special session. What should happen now? Next, we'll discuss. Don't go away. Well, a lot of grumbling around Connecticut over the electric bill. State regulators approved another rate increase last week for Eversource and UI. The rate hike is designed to help pay for the ongoing upgrades to the state's electric vehicle charging grid, McKinney's car. The average increase is about $3 per month. Republicans have called for a special session over the climbing rates and are looking forward for ways to help customers who are incensed at their monthly bills. The governor, Lamont, said Thursday he would be open to considering practical solutions to help lower costs in a special session, but there's one thing he doesn't seem to agree with. Watch this.
We should be looking at how we offset this $200 million of public benefit charges with general fund money.
Moving it on to the state budget, in which it's prioritized with everything else, there's full transparency.
By the way, when legislators say paid for by the general fund, that's language for mean paid for by the taxpayers.
Well, where to go with this one, guys? Who wants the first one at this one, Liz?
Look, the governor has effectively let Pura turn the utilities into tax collectors. We're passing these taxes and fees on to ratepayers, and it is not something that they're getting blamed for because it's not coming on their tax bill. If these were things that the utilities could control, they would, but they can't. And so the unfortunate thing is we're looking at a $900 million bill that's going to be coming due here with Take Back the Grid that the legislature owns. And that cost they knew was going to be absorbed by the ratepayers. Look, Republicans were talking about this issue and brought it to the forefront in February at the beginning of session, and they were told to sit in a corner and be quiet. They said, use the ARPA money that's there to help mitigate the costs and help alleviate the burden on ratepayers, and the governor then turned his back and said no. So the governor owns this problem. He has to be part of the solution, and he can't just pretend that he has nothing to do with it.
I think it really is the three-legged stool. It's a complex problem. The legislature itself has struggled with it for years. In 2017, when we passed that Millstone deal, and it was a Republican idea that brought it to the table near the end of the session because Millstone was talking about mothballing. Millstone was talking about laying off the workers. We waited out as a legislature, and we moved forward with it. That impacted the bill. They're now buying energy from Millstone at a higher rate than they can get it elsewhere. It is a complex problem. It's going to take Pura, the policymakers, the executive branch, and the utilities to get around the table and really come up with what's the vision for the state. No one-offs in the legislature, whether it was Take Back the Grid or storm responsiveness, that all costs money. The pass-throughs on the bill, that costs the ratepayers money. We have to have an honest conversation. It's not any one person's fault. We want to beat up Eversource. Okay, you can do it, but they're not solely responsible for this. It's all three.
Well, it's a good segue because I've taken my turns beating up Eversource on this show and when I was in the legislature. This is not the time to beat them up. The public benefits charge are things that are mandated by the government, by the legislature, that they pass through and don't make a profit on. So legislators own this. With respect to Millstone, look, it is a complex problem. We're at the end of the line. We all know that. But Millstone is carbon-free.
Yes.
If you believe in green energy, nuclear has to be a bigger part of our solution. Right. It's much cheaper than solar and wind. Yeah.
He was captivated. I was so captivated by what you were saying. This energy stuff is very complicated, but we have to be mindful that we're hitting the pockets of all Connecticut residents, and that we also need to consider the poor.
Got it. Right. The old saying goes, know your limit. Next on Cal Report, hey, beer man, has the craft beer boom gone bust in Connecticut? Details we get back. Don't go away. Crack one open, guys. Huh?
You got one?
Well, is there such a thing as too much of a good thing? Well, apparently for Connecticut, that might be craft breweries. While dozens of them continue to thrive across Connecticut, our friends at the Hartford Courant did some math and discovered that since 2014, 33 craft breweries have tapped out in Connecticut. Beer is hard work. The Courant reports that closings jumped since the pandemic, proving that beer business isn't always buzzing, but raise a glass to those guys still thriving, huh? No more, beanball. What's it called?
McKinney and I were drinking.
Beer, more THC seltzers. That's what's going on.
How about we have a problem with all small businesses who are being taxed and regulated and burdens put on them.
The D-block, Liz. Come on.
We're supposed to have a little fun.
We're the yucks. We're supposed to pound a beer.
I'm not a craft brew guy. You know, I mean, I love the craft breweries, but no, I don't like espresso in my beer or orange peel or this and that. That'll do it for this week on Cal Report. For McGee, the coach, Lizzie, Johnny Beckham, the Dudchik. I'll see you next week.
Oh, that's a good.
That was a weak effort. That was a weak effort.
More.
I had to get it in.